What if Robb Stark honored his marriage pact with House Frey? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. As Robb's host gathers in the twins in preparation for their march back north, he stands by the Lord's table for an announcement. He wishes to be married to his bride right away. Everyone from the Northern Lords to the Freys, and even Catelyn, is surprised by this request. While it was expected that Robb would have to marry the Frey girl sooner or later, many had expected it to wait until after the war. Walder is the first to respond and gladly accepts this request. He orders for his daughters to be brought forward for Robb to choose, while orders are made to prepare a feast. Robb eventually chooses Roslin Frey, and a ceremony commences. As the celebration commences, they are interrupted when Walder Frey and Sir Hosteen arrive, announcing they have a gift to present to Robb. This is the Hound, bound in chains and surrounded by spearmen and a young traveling companion. Though dressed as a boy and covered in dirt, Catelyn immediately recognizes her daughter. She shouts for her to be released and hurries to embrace her, tears streaming down her face as the two hold each other tight. Robb manages to keep his composure, though his lip quivers. As the three reunite, all the Northmen cheer and applaud, seeing the family reunite. Arya convinces Robb to take the Hound in his household as a guard, assuring him that she wouldn't have reached here without him. While the rest of the lords celebrate this event and see it as a good omen for their coming campaign, Roose Bolton broods in the corner, glancing at the Freys and then at the other lords, thinking of his next move. When the northern forces march out, they follow Robb's plan to retake Moat Cailin without much issue. As predicted, the Ironborn are unprepared for this assault, and with their garrison weakened, they are in no position to seriously challenge the northern army. Soon, the castle falls to them without much issue. As the north crosses the neck, its forces begin to disperse as each lord returns to their castle and secures it from the Ironborn. With few forces and without Balon's leadership, these households fall quickly. Winterfell is taken almost without a fight, allowing the Starks to resettle and rebuild. Catelyn focuses all her efforts on restoring the castle, while Robb receives word from the Night's Watch about wildlings. Although exhausted from the war, he knows he cannot ignore their plight and reluctantly leaves Roslin with his mother. While they are back in Winterfell, Arya demands to be trained to fight. To her surprise, Catelyn agrees. After everything that happened, she is more than happy to let Arya learn to protect herself. However, she doesn't allow the Hound to train her, as Arya suggests, instead selecting Daisy Mormont, who trained her younger sisters. However, there is trouble with the Wall, as while Robb rides out, he finds that he isn't the only king there. Stannis arrived as well and managed to scatter the wildling host. Despite that, Robb continued the chase, having more cavalry and capturing many more. While Robb is grateful, he still refuses to swear allegiance to Stannis. Meanwhile, Stannis expects support from the north. Seeing this, Jon Snow steps in and comes up with a compromise. Together they captured thousands of wildlings, and these could be given to Stannis. However, Jon warns that these wildlings are not feudal troops and pride their freedom. If he wants to win them over, he must win them over with the promise of loot, while promising their families will be kept safe in the gift. Robb concedes to this and allows any volunteers who wish to join Stannis will do so without punishment. He says this, not expecting many to take his offer, but House Karstark pledges troops and Lord Bolton agrees to a meeting with Stannis. Roose Bolton sits at the high table, pale eyes gleaming as he watches Stannis Baratheon across the room. The King in the Narrow Seas stands rigid, and Sir Davos Seaworth flanks him.
My Lord King, I trust the Dreadfort has proven adequate.
Enough of that, Bolton. You asked for this meeting. Answer me straight. Do you intend to declare war for me?
Oh, yes and no. I will send men to support you and lead them, but not openly. The North is bleeding, broken, and the Young Wolf's rule cannot last. The North cannot win this war, not with Robb Stark at its helm. But you, my king, you can. And I can help.
Help how?
I offer you men. My forces, along with the houses Dustin and Ricewell. They grow restless under the Stark's leadership.
And what price do you ask for this betrayal?
My house's survival, of course. A place of power in the new North you will rule. You speak of betrayal as though it's just another trade. Why should we trust you? I have no love for Robb Stark or his childish notions of honor. It is this honor that brought us to the verge of ruin.
I see. And when can I expect these troops?
There is more. Discretion is paramount. I will leave a body double to maintain the illusion of my loyalty to the Starks, but I will sail with you. No one will suspect a thing until it is too late.
And if I were to accept this treachery, how do I know you will not turn your cloak again when it suits you?
You don't. But for both our sakes, I hope that by the time they learn of this betrayal, you are in a position stronger than them.
If you deliver the men you promise, I will accept your aid. But understand this, Lord Bolton. I do not tolerate betrayal lightly. If you so much as hesitate, you will know what the flayed man on your sigil feels like.
True to his word, Roose Bolton provides him with 3,000 Northmen from houses Bolton, Ricewell, Dustin, and Hornwood. These all sail south with Stannis and whatever volunteers he manages to scrounge up. Since he has nothing further to gain from the north, he decides to sail south to the Stormlands to try and secure his holdings there. When he arrives, he immediately begins to retake some of the captured castles he lost. As Stannis had said earlier, though their treason might have been forgiven, it is far from forgotten, and he takes these castles by force, storming them and forcing their men-at-arms to join him. Roose rides alongside him, sowing chaos and torturing those prisoners who seem especially problematic. They could not have chosen a better time to strike, as not long before, Lord Tywin died, throwing the Lannisters into disarray and giving them a free hand. With Joffrey dead as well, this leaves only Tommen to take the throne, and his mother, Cersei, as Queen Regent. Not long after, Robb begins his campaign south as well, with a small northern army, but they are quickly reinforced by men in the Riverlands. With both kings back in the fight, this puts Cersei on the back foot, and for the first few weeks, it seems like things are right back where they were before the Blackwater. That is until Cersei receives a letter from Roose Bolton.
To Her Grace, Queen Cersei Lannister, Protector of the Realm. While I remain a bannerman to House Stark in name, I believe the time has come to reveal my true allegiance and my willingness to act in your service. You will recall that your brother, Sir Jaime Lannister, was captured and held as a prisoner of war by the North. Through my own efforts, I ensured his safe passage back to King's Landing. I offer you my aid once more. Though I am fighting on behalf of Lord Stannis, it is within my power to deliver you both of the false kings. My proposal is simple. I ask that I be named Warden of the North in perpetuity once the war is won and Robb Stark is no more. I trust that the mutual interests of our houses will lead to a fruitful partnership. May the old gods bless your reign. Roose Bolton, Lord of the Dreadfort.
The Stormlands stretch before Stannis Baratheon and his 10,000 men. Stannis rides at the head of his army, his burning heart banners snapping in the wind, his eyes fixed north where the Crownlands wait, untouched by the war, and where he can gather supplies and more troops, as well as threaten the Iron Throne. Even if he doesn't attack King's Landing, he can hopefully frighten them. But as he's a day's ride out, he hears word that a combined host of Tyrell and Lannister forces led by Mace Tyrell and Kevan Lannister are rushing to meet him and block his path near Summerhall. Stannis' forces take up a defensive position on higher ground that oversees the ruins, with his southerners taking the right flank where the northerners guard left. At dawn, the Tyrell vanguard charges up the muddy slope, their knights bedecked in green and gold, but meet a deadly rain of arrows while mud churns under their feet. The charge falters, and Stannis leads a counterattack, his infantry pushing the Tyrell forces back down the hill. As the battle rages, Stannis' forces hold firm. Though Mace sends his infantry to reinforce his faltering cavalry, the upward approach gives Stannis' troops the advantage, allowing them to bludgeon the Tyrell host. Meanwhile, Kevan sends his own troops to charge up the left, where the Northmen are waiting. When Stannis' men are fully engaged in pursuit of the Tyrells, Kevan signals his foot to charge. The Lannister infantry sweeps in from the east, slamming into Stannis' left flank. Despite their shield wall, the Northmen's ranks only hold for a while. Slowly but surely, they begin to fold from the assault. Roose Bolton's forces, ostensibly fighting for Stannis, begin to falter. At first, it appears to be a simple retreat, a regrouping of the northern forces, but as Kevan presses forward, the retreat turns into a collapse. Bolton's men abandon their positions entirely, leaving a critical gap in Stannis' line. Davos tries to warn Stannis, but it's too late, as the Lannisters' forces pour through the breach, encircling Stannis' army. The Tyrells, regaining their footing, return to the fight, their knights slamming into Stannis' battered left flank. Stannis fights like a man possessed, his sword cutting down foe after foe. His blackened armor gleams in the rain as he tries to rally his forces, but a hand pulls him from his horse and cuts him down. Davos just barely manages to rally a few loyal retainers and secures his body before galloping off, preventing the Tyrells from claiming it. While it preserves Stannis' body from being desecrated, the one true king is lost. But deeper in the wilderness, the Northmen begin to regroup. Their forces were battered, but mostly intact. They do not worry about the Lannisters or Tyrells, as Kevan knows not to pursue them. Meanwhile, up north, while the body double continues to rule officially, in truth, Ramsay is in true power. With the full strength of the Deadfort at his disposal, Ramsay begins to challenge Lord Manderly's control over the Hornwood lands. As the other houses work to retake their lands, Ramsay leads a small force to liberate Torrhen Square. Without their lords, they join Ramsay, who orders them to begin attacking the Manderly garrisons at Hornwood to claim it for themselves. He lies, claiming that the land was promised to their house, and soon fighting breaks out between them, the Manderlys and the remaining Hornwoods. Seeing how they are now fighting over the territory, houses Flint, Karstark, and Glover all try to get their piece of the pie and join in, sowing chaos in the area. With Robb south and only Arya and Catelyn left, they struggle to maintain control without formulating a solution. However, they struggle to determine which house should claim the Hornwood lands. That is until Ramsay appears with an idea. He stands before Catelyn and Arya, who are seated in the Great Hall, Needle resting on Arya's lap.
To grant the Hornwood lands to one of these lords after this bloodshed would be an affront to justice. I've already captured several such men-at-arms and had them hanged as a warning. It does not matter whether they wear the Sunburst, Pine Tree, or Merman. This fighting cannot be tolerated.
Interesting how you condemn violence when I've heard so much of your crimes.
I will not insult you by claiming my hands are clean of blood, but I am a Bolton, by blood, though not name. I wish to act accordingly. I did not permit Bolton men to just join this fighting, but if my lady deems it necessary, I would be honored to restore order.
You would take control of Hornwood, and you think we should just give it to you?
I would take nothing, my lady. Only the responsibility of preserving the peace. I only wish to honor my father's name. Should you wish to reclaim it after that, I would gladly relinquish it. I just ask you think about it.
Ramsay departs without another word. Both mother and daughter know he cannot be trusted, and yet there is some truth to his words. To give these lands to any other house after this fighting would set a bad example. Before either of them can respond, a heavy knock sounds on the door, interrupting the moment. A servant enters quickly, and behind him, Lord Manderly strides.
I take it the bastard made his suggestion.
He did, my lord. But you should know that I will not make this decision lightly.
I was expecting nothing less. But before you make this decision, I think it would be wise to listen to some witnesses I've gathered.
At Lord Manderly's command, 3 men step forward. One, a grizzled soldier, a squire, and a young man with a haunted look in his eyes. The soldier, a wary-looking man with a rough voice, steps forward first.
I was part of the escort for Lady Hornwood. We were traveling from Winterfell to Hornwood when Bolton's men ambushed us. Ramsay himself took her, Lady Hornwood. None of us could stop him. He tortured her. He killed her. Then there's the Squire Wax Payne. He was at Winterfell when the Boltons attacked. His wounds speak the horror that Ramsay brought to that place.
To prove his point, the squire pulls out a parchment that paints a picture of the walls of Winterfell, with the Northmen being slaughtered, not by Ironborn, but by Dreadfort men.
If that's not enough proof, then let a witness speak.
The squire bows, wearing the badge of House Serwyn.
I served alongside Lord Clay Serwyn during the battle, my lady. While the Greyjoys held Winterfell,
They had barely enough men to guard a farmhouse. No, it wasn't the squids who attacked us. It was those flayed men. I barely escaped the battle and was sheltered in White Harbor." The room is still. Arya's breath catches in her throat, and her fingers tighten around Needle. Catelyn's hands tighten on the edge of the table, but she says nothing, waiting for his response.
Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Lord Manderley. Rest assured that we shall ensure justice is met for this monster.
That is heartening to know. But if I may make a suggestion, we must inform King Robb immediately. And if I may be so bold as to suggest that you and your daughter return to White Harbor with me, I have men to protect you.
No! I will not allow Winterfell to fall a second time. My place is here.
My daughter speaks truly. We cannot afford to show weakness in a time like this. We shall remain here.
Then at least allow me to send my sons and some Manderley knights to stiffen your defenses.
That would be most welcome.
The Riverlands are heavy with the scent of smoke and the roar of battle as Robb Stark's army continues its non-stop battle with the Crown Host. They've fought an endless series of battles across the Trident, trying to keep them back from the crossing. Though they've so far prevented Randall Tarley from gaining a foothold, they have not been able to defeat them. But one day, Robb is surprised to hear of a force of Northmen approaching from the south. These men explain that they are remnants of Stannis' host, which was defeated in Summerhall. They now wish to rejoin their brothers. Although confused, Robb welcomes them and allows them to rejoin his force.
Lord Stark, we come from the Stormlands. The last of our forces survived Stannis' defeat. We brought word of his failure and asked him to serve in your ranks. You're welcome. We could use every sword we can get. The Tarleys will not break so easily.
The ensuing battles begin like usual, with Tarley attempting to force a crossing, but is beaten back by the Rivermen and Northmen. The added Northmen are placed in a ford on the south to help the Rivermen there. But as the battle rages, things continue like normal, with the Tyrell forces suffering heavily for their attempts. But then he receives a word from a rider, a breakthrough in the south. Gathering whatever men he has, Robb tries to ride there and reinforce the situation, but the battle is already over as the Rivermen lay dead around them, and Steelshanks is allowing the Tarley forces to cross. Something seems off. Robb's eyes widen as he spots Roose Bolton among them. Without another word, Robb signals a charge. The horsemen with him rush into battle, slamming into the Reachmen as they cross. With surprise on their side, the enemy is thrown back, and the advance is halted. But the Bolton men rush to face them. Robb lets out a battle cry and swings his sword at Roose. Their blades meet several times, and Robb tries to drive him back. Roose responds with defensive maneuvers, trying to keep the king busy as the Tarley forces begin to rally and surround Robb. The king glances around and feels the enemy surrounding him. This lapse in focus is all Roose needs. The Lord of the Dreadfort smiles and surges forward. Robb barely stops his blade as he throws a flurry of attacks, but he finds himself surrounded, and while he blocks the traitorous lord, other men drive their swords into him. The king can only gasp, clutching at his chest as he falls into the water. Back in the north, with the Northmen embroiled in their battles over the Hornlands, the Starks continue to try and rebuild their home as best they can, recruiting new guards to join the Manderley forces sent by Lord Waymon. But even with these efforts, Ramsay has a trump card, Theon Greyjoy, who knows the weaknesses of this castle. After torturing the information out of him, Ramsay decides to strike, taking his bastard boys to sneak through one of the postern gates. The attack begins swiftly. Ramsay's men infiltrate the outer halls of Winterfell, silently taking down the few guards on duty. The stone walls are soon stained with blood, but they are surprised to see Manderley men there as well, and are not expecting the resistance, as one man-at-arms manages to raise the alarm bell before he falls. Inside, Arya Stark is in the midst of training in the courtyard with Daisy Mormont. But then, the unmistakable sounds of fighting echo through the castle, reaching her ears. She hesitates for a moment, instincts taking over. She dashes for the castle gates, but before she can reach the courtyard's edge, a guard falls, stabbed in the dark. The castle's interior erupts in chaos. The walls reverberate with the cries of dying men. At their head is the Hound, who organizes the defense and cuts down one of Ramsay's men like a stalk of wheat. Daisy grabs Arya's hand and pulls her away, guiding her away from the training yard and into the Great Hall. Halfway there, they run into Wendell Manderly, who has Catelyn, and Roslin Stark, who stumbles and is heavy with child. The two of them share a nod and make their way inside. As Daisy armors herself, Wendell holds the door and bars it. For a moment, there's silence, and the two breathe a sigh of relief. But then, there's a loud shudder as something slams against the door. Wendell reaches for his bow, and Daisy readies her mace as the door shudders again, this time starting to crack it open. With a few more hits, it begins to give way, and they glimpse a group of men outside. Arya takes a deep breath and draws needle, steeling herself just as the door gives way and the first man comes rushing in. Catelyn holds Roslin close and keeps the pregnant woman behind her. Daisy is waiting and slams her mace against his chest and throws him back. The second falls to an arrow by Sir Wendell. Another attacks Daisy, locking swords with her, but while he is distracted, Arya drives her sword into his calf, sending him off balance and letting the Bear Island woman finish him off. Arya targets a soldier at Wendell's side and slashes at his thigh before he can strike at the giant man. Despite that, 10 men rush in and swarm the two defenders. Though they fight bravely, Daisy screams as she feels a blade in her side, and Wendell takes a cut at his thigh and flops to the ground. Arya steps back, holding her sword tightly as she steps protectively in front of her mother. But the men don't advance. Instead, a figure pushes between them. Ramsay Bolton. His face is twisted into a cruel smirk, playing.
Ah, the little wolf. You gave me good sport, but there's nothing left for you here. Winterfell is mine, but I will give you a quick death for the fun.
I'll never let you have Winterfell.
We shall see once I start plucking those pretty eyes of yours out.
He pulls out a falchion and rushes at her. He's older and stronger, his first attack throwing her back, but he lacks training and control. Arya dances out of his second attack and parries the third. Growling, Ramsay rushes at her, trying to corner Arya, who parries each attack, her light blade giving her superior speed to block and defend against each attack. The movements are enough. For a time, Arya holds her ground against him, using all her training and everything she's learned. But it is a dangerous game, as Ramsay's brutality promises a vicious punishment, and his energy seems endless. In a final desperate moment, Arya lunges at him, but Ramsay catches her wrist, twisting it with a vicious snap. Arya cries out in pain, her grip weakening, his needle drops to the ground. He pushes her down and reaches for a dagger.
I'm not supposed to kill you, according to my father, but he didn't say I couldn't take a bit of skin off.
Arya desperately tries to keep his arm back, but Ramsay's much stronger. But the scream of one of his men-at-arms causes Ramsay to turn. The man has a sword sticking out from his chest, as the Hound lifts the man off the ground and shakes his blade free. His dark eyes burn with fury, and in his hand, a heavy longsword gleams with blood. The Bolton men rush at him, but the Hound lets out a low roar and meets them head-on. He flings one across the room and then cuts a second down. The rest try to surround him, but he swings his sword in sweeping arcs, keeping them away. Arya takes this chance to knee Ramsay and squirms out of his grip just as the Hound finishes off the last of his men. He raises his falchion and rushes the Hound, swinging a few savage swings, but the Hound is both fully trained and much, much larger. These attacks are almost lazy before he shoves Ramsay into the ground and buries his weapon into his skull. The Hound kicks his sword away and looks at Arya.
You all right, girl?
I am now.
As Catelyn is helping Dancy and Wendell to their feet, they receive reports that the guardsmen have secured the castle. But this good mood soon vanishes as they receive reports that Robb Stark has fallen. Shortly after, the remaining Northmen retreat back beyond the Neck. Though Roose disguises himself, he returns to find his castle taken as the new Lady of Winterfell orders the Manderly to seize his lands. The attack on Winterfell is enough proof for Roose to be executed for his crimes. Meanwhile, the Hornwood lands are granted to Lawrence Snow, with the Hound as his protector and Arya warning them that any further violence will not be taken kindly. However, these are serious setbacks for the exhausted North, who have no choice but to sue for peace. The only consolation is that the Lannisters are equally exhausted and give generous terms, only demanding that they renounce their clan and swear allegiance to Tommen. With Joffrey dead and neither side able to continue the war, Arya and Catelyn reluctantly do so. And soon after, Roslin gives birth to a healthy young boy. That's our theory. Remember, if you enjoyed this story and want to see it continued, like the video. If it reaches 1,500 likes, Part 2 will be made. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the 7 kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.